This is Becoming You Again, the podcast helping you heal from your divorce and deal with the mental and emotional challenges you face so you can get on living the best of the rest of your life. I'm your host, Karen Nelson, and you are listening to episode number 226. Welcome to Becoming You Again, the podcast where you learn to step into your power as a woman in this world, where you learn to reconnect to your wholeness, your integrity, and bring into alignment your brain, your body, and your intuition after divorce. This is the podcast where you learn to trust yourself again and move forward toward a life that you truly want. You are listening to Becoming You Again, and I am your host, Karen Nelson. Welcome back to the podcast, my lovely, lovely ladies. I'm going to do another kind of odd episode today. Not odd in like, it's not going to help you, just different, just slightly different in that I'm going to be talking a lot about my personal journey with divorce guilt. And I hope that through listening to my experience, you'll be able to see similarities with your own experience and then obviously do what you will with that, right? Hopefully you can let go of some of it. Hopefully you can heal from some of it. Hopefully you can create some kind of new narrative that helps you unwind from some of the divorce guilt that you might be feeling. But either way, I hope that you will get some good out of this episode, even though I'm not going to be offering you like concrete tools that you can take and implement in your own life. It's more of just like me sharing part of my story and part of my own healing process with you. When I asked for the divorce, I had a lot of guilt that I was holding on to. And a good chunk of the guilt was coming from me being raised a Mormon, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As a member of that church, I was told for most of my life, until I left the church at around age 33-ish. I'm 47 now. It's been about 15 years since I left being a member of that religion. But so I was told for a very long time, and definitely a very good portion of my marriage, that divorce wasn't a good option. Divorce wasn't a viable option. Divorce wasn't something that you do. You just figure out a way to make it work. I was told that if you were struggling in your marriage for whatever reason, like if there was unhappiness, if there was incompatibility, if there was infidelity, even if there was abuse, you were expected to do everything in your power to make your marriage work. Because divorce meant putting your eternal salvation at risk. Like in the Mormon church, you're not married for until death do you part. That is not part of the marriage vows in the Mormon church. It is for time and all eternity. My cat came in and is eating his food, so I'm sorry if you can hear him in the background eating. If you're married in the Mormon church, it's like you're putting your eternal salvation and your children's eternal salvation, life after death, at risk by getting a divorce. And this is taught to you and reiterated by your church leaders. And I clung to that belief for years and years and years. And even after I asked for a divorce to end my 20-year marriage, I had so much guilt that I was making the wrong decision. I had guilt that I should have tried harder. I had guilt that I just wasn't enough and I was being punished for my imperfections as a woman in this world. I believed that kids were worse off living through divorce and that single mothers were the lowest of the low, especially if they had chosen this path by asking for the divorce. And that by choosing it, well, it's just their own fault if their kids hate them. or it's their own fault if they have less financial stability or a less stable living situation or less romantic prospects, because who wants to be with a mom that already has kids? Like, I carried these beliefs with me. So when I asked for a divorce, even though I had left the church like 10 years earlier, I still had all of these beliefs that I had just been holding on to for years. It's not like I just left the church and then all of a sudden, all of my thoughts about life and about things that I had been raised to believe just automatically left my brain. It would be nice if that would happen, right? But that isn't how we work as humans. I also carried a lot of guilt because I believed that this decision to divorce was just another blemish on my report card of whether or not I was a good child in my parents' eyes. I told myself the story that this isn't the child my parents raised. I believed that my parents had like this imaginary card of expectations for their kids, and that the more checked off boxes they had, the happier that they could be as parents and the more successful they could feel as parents. I imagined that there were things on this card like, okay, my child got baptized into the Mormon church at the age of 8. Check. My child went to church every Sunday. Check. I got married at age 19. So again, that's a check mark for my parents. At least this is what I'm imagining, right? My adult child and their marriage partner continue to go to church, and they got married in the temple, and they live a faithful Mormon life. Check, check, check. And for a while anyway, until my husband decided to leave the church and then I followed suit a few years later, that's when I imagined my parents starting to uncheck boxes on their imaginary report card that they held for me. And I felt guilty about that. And it was just the beginning of more guilt that I felt over my decisions and how they affected my parents. And so as I continued to live my life, where I'm imagining my parents are like, oh, this is just another box that we have to uncheck for Karen because she's just not living up to our expectations and the expectations of the Mormon church. And I just imagined they were like, uncheck the next box. Okay, she gets divorced. Uncheck that one. Her kids stop going to church. Uncheck that one. Her kids don't get baptized into the Mormon church. Uncheck that one. She moves in with her current partner and they're not getting married. Uncheck that one. She drinks alcohol. Uncheck that one. So my point is that I had a lot of guilt over my decision to get divorced. It's not like I just made this choice willy-nilly and it wasn't a tough decision. It was. It also didn't mean that I didn't know it was right for me. I 100% knew it was right for me. That doesn't necessarily take away the guilt feeling, right? And because of this guilt that I was carrying around based off of my beliefs from the Mormon church and my beliefs from my own experiences and my beliefs that I was holding about my parents and what they were probably thinking about me, or my belief that I held that they were judging me in some way and then I was feeling guilty over that, I started to kind of even refer to myself sometimes as the black sheep of the family. I had a belief that my parents kind of looked at my life with disgust and sadness and disgrace and pity, and that they looked at my life and they pictured me just like suffering every day because of my terrible decisions from their eyes, right? From their point of view. I wasn't actually suffering. I was actually doing really good after my divorce and after I left the church because it was so much more authentic to me. But I had this idea of like, oh, my parents must be like, they're probably pitying me. They probably just look at me and think, what a sad life she must be living, right? Because I know what they believe. I know what their church teaches them to believe and the expectations that they could possibly be holding on to. So I understood it from both sides. And the reality for my own life was that with each decision I made, like the decision to leave the church, the decision to get divorced, the decision to move in with my partner and not get remarried, the decision to allow myself to just really be authentic to me and what felt good and right for me, I used each of those moments, and I continue to use those moments to grow and to reconnect with myself, to become more authentically me in ways that I had never done when I was a member of the church, when I was growing up, when I was married even, much of the time. In those parts of my life, when I was living inauthentically and when I was living disconnected from myself and my intuition, I was a version of myself who did what I was told to do without questioning if it was really what I wanted to do or if I really believed in it. And then this later version of myself that I have grown into and that I continue to evolve into, and that I continue even from right now, I will evolve into something new, right? A more authentic version of me. That's when I actually started to ask myself, do I believe this? Do I want this? Is this true for me in my life? Is this what's best and right for me? And then I started listening to my intuition and reconnecting to myself and giving myself permission to answer those questions for me. And when I started asking myself those types of questions and answering them for myself with a reconnected brain, body, and intuition, and then living into that direction, that one true north for me, that's when my life became better. That's when my life became my own. So on the one hand, I have this guilt, right, from my divorce. But on the other hand, I feel more connected to myself than I've ever felt before. So I decided, all right, what I need to do is I need to heal the guilt stories. And I need to work on letting go of them. I need to work on unwinding from them. And so I had to start with this Mormon story that divorce wasn't an option. Because that one, clearly, I was divorcing. It was a choice. I made it. So I had to unwind from that idea that divorce isn't an option. Because it is an option. And women shouldn't have to stay in marriages where they're unhappy, where they're abused, where they are miserable, where they are unseen, where they are unheard, where they are walking around on eggshells, or for any other reason. So I had to work on unwinding from that story and learning to let it go. And then I had to work on letting go of the narrative that divorce was bad for my kids. I had to look for the good of what the divorce brought me and my ability to heal myself and reconnect with myself and my ability to become a better version of me, which made me a better version of their mom for them. And I had to look for that good. And I had to forgive myself for the bad, for the parts of me that know that I created suffering for my kids. I had to forgive myself of those moments. And then I had to tackle the guilt over what my decision had done to my parents and the suffering that it probably caused them. And I started with this narrative of the black sheep of the family. I definitely would say that quite often. Like if I was on podcasts or talking to friends or explaining my story to somebody, I would very often refer to myself, yeah, I'm just the black sheep of the family. I'm the one who left the church and I got divorced and I drink alcohol and I live with my partner and all the things, right? I just would name them off like one by one. I'm doing it right now, right? So I had this idea. So I had to kind of start there with that idea. And at first I thought, maybe I should just stop using that description of myself. Like stop referring to myself as the black sheep of the family, because all it did was it made me feel bad, like I had done something bad or wrong, but I didn't actually believe that I had done something bad or wrong. So then I was like, okay, maybe I don't have to get rid of that narrative, the black sheep. Maybe I just need to redefine it. I came across this passage about black sheep, and it completely changed my perspective of how I perceive myself, and it gave me a new definition and belief of my family, of my role in my family, but also it helped me to unwind from the guilt that I had been carrying around in terms of the guilt that I was feeling toward my parents. So here's just a little snippet of this passage. You can look it up if you want. I just think it's incredibly amazing. It was written by Bert Hellinger. I don't really know how to say it, but you get the gist. And just this first opening line, the so-called black sheep of the family are in fact seekers of liberation roads for the family tree. And he goes on to say, like, they're the members of the tree who don't adapt to the rules, who are revolutionizing beliefs, who are releasing repetitive stories that have been holding back generations. Those who are like the rebels, who are showing up and manifesting desires and dreams and talents that past generations haven't been able to fulfill because they couldn't or wouldn't step outside of that box, right? And I'm definitely like summarizing this in my own words, but to me, it just changed my whole perspective of what the idea of black sheep means. And it reminded me that when I feel guilt over certain aspects of my life, I can heal that. I can learn to unwind from those stories and create new narratives that are true and right for me. It doesn't change the fact that, yes, I probably have hurt my parents and created suffering for them in some ways because of my choices, and for my kids and for myself. I mean, let's be real. It's not like divorce is some like fucking pizza party or something where everything goes smoothly all of the time. Nah, divorce is hard. Divorce hurts. There's aspects of it that really suck, but there's aspects of it that are incredibly amazing and freeing. And so, like, being able to change that narrative and unwind from the guilt, wherever your guilt might be coming from, it's possible for you. You can learn to let go of that guilt that you might be carrying around, whether it's toward your parents or toward your ex or toward your kids or decisions that you've made or whatever else. You are allowed to believe new narratives. You are allowed to let go of that guilt that you might be holding on to. I have been able to heal so much from my divorce guilt since my divorce 9 years ago. And I truly believe that it is possible for you to let go and embrace your role as a seeker of liberation, as this passage talks about, as a seeker of liberation for you and those before you who couldn't do it for themselves, and for those who come after you, who are going to use your example as permission to live a full, expansive life. You are worthy of setting down the divorce guilt in all of its forms. So let's work together to do that. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you get something good from this. I will be back next week.
Hi friend, I'm so glad you're here and thanks for listening. I wanted to let you know that if you're wanting more, a way to make deeper, more lasting change, then working one-on-one with me as your coach may be exactly what you need. Together, we'll take everything you're learning in the podcast and implement it in your life with weekly coaching, real life practice, and practical guidance. To learn more about how to work with me one-on-one, go to KarenNelsonCoaching.com. That's www.KarenNelsonCoaching.com. Thanks for listening. If this podcast agreed with you in any way, please take a minute to follow and give me a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. And for more details about how I can help you live an even better life than when you were married, make sure and check out the full show notes by clicking the link in the description.